this episode, our family is visiting Washington for a family reunion and a chance for our kids to experience this amazing state for the first time. If you haven't seen our first video yet, we visit Seattle and the surrounding area. Be sure to check it out. In this video, we'll be driving to Anacordes and visiting places like Washington Park, Fort Casey, Leavenworth, and Snoqualmie Falls. We started our day with a drive to Anacordes and Washington Park on Fidalgo Island. As you can see on the map, Seattle and the other main cities are located on Puget Sound, which is also home to many islands, one of these being Fidalgo. Along the way, we pulled over to buy some strawberries at a stand in the lovely little town of Anacordes. And we also found a donut shop nearby. I have a really tough time resisting donuts, which are my favorite. While we were driving, I spotted what looked like a boat. Then it looked like a grove of trees. As it turns out, this is a shipwrecked boat, which has since become overgrown with trees. We did some research, and the boat, named the La Merced, was built during World War I and then scuttled in 1966 when it was no longer needed. Now it's used as a breakwater to keep the waves from crashing into the ships docked here. When we reached Washington Park, many of our cousins were waiting. We shared our donuts and took time to explore the park and beautiful beach, overlooking the sound and distant islands. While walking down the beach, we found many interesting anemones and other sea life in the tide pools. On our way out, we also saw deer who didn't seem afraid of humans at all. Next, we took the Washington Park Loop around Fidalgo Island, with many beautiful views of the dense forest and ocean along the way. At one point, we just stopped, rolled down our windows, and listened to the sounds of the woods. This was one of our favorite lookouts. Across the water, you can see Burroughs Island. Fidalgo Island was originally inhabited by the Samish and Swinomish peoples. The island is named after the Spanish explorer and cartographer Salvador Fidalgo, who explored the area in 1790. From Fidalgo Island, we drove an hour south across a Deception Pass and to Whidbey Island, where we planned to meet our cousins at Fort Casey State Park. Fort Casey was one of the 3 major forts built on the island to defend the country by sea. The fort is named after the U.S. Army Chief of Engineers, Thomas Lincoln Casey, and construction began in 1897. Officers and soldiers also lived here, where they trained, drilled, and apparently threw each other in the air using blankets. How fun does that look? The huge guns you see here have a pretty cool design. They're called disappearing guns and would hide after being fired to avoid being hit by enemy fire, and then spring back up when ready to fire again. We equipped the kids with flashlights, and they explored the huge concrete structure overlooking the sea. The grounds and beach around Fort Casey are beautiful, and we highly recommend visiting. The kids loved exploring the fort, and you're probably not surprised, the fort made for an epic game of tag with cousins. After Fort Casey, to head back to Redmond for the night, we drove further down Whidbey Island to catch the ferry that would take us back to the mainland. If you haven't seen a ferry before, these huge boats are used to transport people and even their cars across the water. We drove through Everett and passed by the Boeing factory. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a tour, but at the factory they make the huge 747 passenger planes, which are built inside the largest building in the world by volume, at 98.7 acres. On our way back to Redmond, we stopped to eat some delicious Japanese food. Our next day started with a visit to my wife's family farm in Redmond. My wife's grandparents bought the farm in 1975, and her mother grew up there. Today, her aunt and uncle use it to grow and sell redwood Christmas trees during the holidays. They also plan to do a pumpkin patch in the fall, and year-round have an indoor plant boutique that we love checking out. If you're ever in the area, be sure to visit and say hi for us. Our next destination was Leavenworth, 2 hours east of Redmond. The scenery along the way was breathtaking. Leavenworth is located in the Cascade Mountain Range. For a very long time, the area was home to the Yakama, Chinook, and Wenatchi tribes, who all hunted the land and fished the river for salmon. In the 1890s, settlers arrived to mine gold and log timber, naming the place Icicle Falls. Later it was renamed to Leavenworth, as the timber industry grew and the railroad connected it to other major towns. But sadly, over time, business slowed, and Leavenworth almost became a ghost town and nearly didn't survive. But in the 1960s, town leaders had a brilliant idea to attract visitors by redesigning the town to look like a Bavarian or Alpine village. The mountains around Leavenworth reminded people of the Alps in Switzerland, so they thought if the buildings looked the same, it would be a fun place for people to visit and be transported to an exotic foreign location. The city changed its look and even created festivals around the different seasons that attracted visitors, boosting tourism. The plan worked, and today Leavenworth is now a thriving town where more than 1 million tourists visit every year. We ate some delicious brats and hot dogs for lunch at the Munchen House, and then walked along Main Street checking out all the unique Bavarian-themed shops along the way. Our next destination was Snoqualmie Falls, a 268-foot waterfall located east of Seattle. For a very long time, the area had been home to the Snoqualmie people, a tribe that considers the falls and the land around it sacred. First, we walked from the parking lot and took in views of the falls from above. We hit them at just the right time, and the lighting was beautiful. This was my kids' first time to see a waterfall of this size, and they were blown away. Next, we hiked down a trail, enjoying the scenery along the way, until reaching the bottom near the river, where we took in the views from below. The falls are also used as a hydroelectric plant, where the force of the water is converted into energy and used to power homes and businesses across the state. After viewing the falls from below, we hiked back out as it was getting dark, and then headed back to Redmond. Also be sure to check out the Bedtime History YouTube channel with hundreds of videos about people, places, and events from history, and the Bedtime History podcast with new episodes released every Monday.